For me to chair this session is a unique task since not until long ago, I used to sit on the defendant side of the bench, so to speak, on the government side. It's easy for me to understand the gentlemen you're going to hear in a few minutes, their vision, their interest, motivation, the policy that they're driving, and even their concerns. But today, as I'm on the other side, I acknowledge more the limitation of governmental role. I want to suggest for all of us to look at the role of the two sectors, governmental and private, as a cooperation between the enablers and the performers. But first, let me introduce you to Capital Nature, and I do hope that only few of you haven't heard of us yet. Capital Nature won 2 years ago a governmental tender to establish and operate the National Renewable Energy Technology Center here in Eilat-Eilot. In that sense, we are a true joint venture with the government. The small yet expert team is dedicated to investment in seed and early stage ventures in the field of green energies solely. Sorry. Okay. Our vision and target is to create a true meeting place between green energy, industry, academia, and entrepreneurs, both locally and internationally. Our model of operation has 3 pillars, as you can see in the slide: to sponsor applied academic research, to invest in seed and early stage ventures, and to enable testing and demonstration of renewable energy technologies with our test site. You can see in this slide our partners, those partners, if you can see, we have industrial partners that provides us technological depth. We have financial partners and academic partners, all of which are leaders in their fields. I prepared some slides about investments, just to shed some light. And the first one goes to the global energy shift, and you just heard Mr. Isaac, in the next 2 decades. As you can see from the IEA, in the next 2 decades, 70% of the increase in worldwide demand will come from China and India. And according to that report, 50% of the new investment will be in renewable energy and green energy. If you look at the investment side, we can see that although there are headwinds and the economic downturn, you can see that still investments are rising in that sector. If you look at the company side, you can see that we have 2 tiers of activity. The first tier and the big players are the US, Europe, and China. And the second tier, as you can see on the left-hand side, are Canada, Israel, and India. And I want to shed a light on another report, or the Cleantech 100 Index of 2012 that was introduced just lately. According to that report, Israel is rated second in renewable energy innovation and within that index, within that 100 companies, 8 of them come from Israel. I want to go also to the side of the corporate and how corporate looks at the energy sources, and this is a report that comes from Ernst & Young Global Corporate Energy Mix Survey from this year, and 67% of the corporation that participated declared their intention to increase production of energy from renewable sources, and they mean production generated from their assets or under their control. So it's not the grid, it's theirs. And last but not least, if you look at the VC side, on the left-hand side you see the global trend. We can see that in most places, clean tech investments are standing still or declining, while in Israel they are rising. So I want to conclude with that and to call for the first speaker, Mr. Eyal Rosner, Director of Administration of Alternative Fuel Initiative, the Prime Minister Office.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for all the early birds. What I'd like to do today is tell you a little bit more about the government initiative that was initiated about a year ago. Generally speaking, we are talking about a 10-year plan with about 1.5 billion shekel budget that focuses on trying to find solutions for the transportation sector. Okay, so I'll try to show you what we have in plan and what is our strategy. This is just before we start a chart of the NOx emission in Tel Aviv and last Yom Kippur. What you see here is basically a kind of an experiment. What we see here is that when there are no cars, there is no emission. And it's actually very simple. And if you think about it, this is what we actually inhale on a daily basis. So on an average day, we have about 150 times more than exposed to a normal day. So this is what we have to suffer, and this is one of the issues that we have to tackle. Okay, there are many reasons why we should get off oil. I'm sure you're aware of most of them. The geopolitical issues, the economic issues. I just showed you the climate issue. I just want to focus on 2 things. One of them is the fact that oil is peaking. And I'm not, doesn't really argue whether or not there is enough oil around the world. The issue is that once you look at how much it costs to produce oil these days, it's probably like 10 or 15 times more expensive than it used to be 30, 40 years ago. And the second question is, the second issue is about energy independence. It goes along for many countries, especially in the United States. And the issue here is that regardless of how much oil you will find in the rest of the world, still 80% of the oil around the world the reserves is still under the control of a small group of countries. So at the end of the day, oil is not a free market, and the price of oil is not being set by what we call the market, only by a small group of countries. And this is one of the risks we have to tackle. Okay, so as we said, we are focusing on transportation. And the reason for that is that oil is a monopoly in transportation. We're talking about 96% market share, which is, nice monopoly. And the second part is the fact that transportation counts for about 2/3 of the oil consumption around the world. So we believe that if we'll be able to address this problem, we'll probably be able to solve the issue of oil monopoly, and we reduce the power of oil around the world. And again, we don't think we're going to eliminate oil, but we just want to reduce it to its normal size. Okay, so when I first joined, and I joined this from the private sector about 5 months ago, my basic assumption was that we have to find solutions that make sense. There are many people in the solar industry here, and they know what's happened when the government changes minds. So we want to basically come up with a solution that makes sense to the general public. If it's going to make sense to the general public, people will adopt it, and then we'll see the solution widespread. And the second thing that we've decided to do as a policy is not picking a winner. There are so many smart people around the world, and in Israel especially, and we know that each one of them think that his solution is like the best. So we are not going to be the judge here. What we try to do is leveling the playing field, and let everybody play and let the best man win. And again, we know that we have to support as a government to be the enabler. We also need to support the infrastructure, and this is among the things that we are considering. The first thing we've done when I joined is trying to figure out what the market has to offer, and not necessarily just in Israel, but globally. And what we've realized is that the reality is there are many solutions, and some of them actually viable these days. And this is a major change, because nobody really think about that in these terms about 10 or 15 years ago. So having said that, we are decided that once we have many solutions, and obviously there will be no gold standard, we believe that oil will be replaced by many solutions, not just by one. And we already realized that some of them are viable now. So we looked around, and apparently some countries already started. Like Brazil have like 70% of their transportation runs on ethanol, and some other countries use methanol, etc. And obviously there's a local bias. Country like China use methanol from coal, and other country, and Brazil uses ethanol from sugar, etc., etc. So what we've decided to do is build a program that will support each part of the market needs based on the needs. And the first one is implementation. What we are trying to do, and I'll show it to you later, is trying to implement locally what we can in the current technology, and in order to kind of gain knowledge and show the market that we can do it. The second part is what we call a pilot stage, is we're trying to bring forward technology which are maybe a couple of years ahead, in order for them to be more accessible. And the third part is the R&D part. Again, from the notion that the current solution might not be ideal, and we need to find the second and third generation technologies. So we build a strategy built on three major points. Local market is the first one. What we try to do here is use Israel as a test bed, using the fact that we are a small country that can move fast. And we put in aggressive goals, up to 60% by 2025, that we will be able to replace oil. And the way we analyzed it, it's not just like that. We've basically analyzed each one of the transportation sectors in a bottom-up analysis. And we've thought what will be the best solution for that specific sector. For example, if you're talking about heavy-duty trucks, they are perfect for CNG, compressed natural gas. If you're talking about the private sector, then the infrastructure issue is a major issue. That's why we are addressing the methanol. If you talk about public transportation, that could go either to CNG or to electric buses, which are apparently viable these days. And we're actually going to start a pilot with an electric bus next month. The second point, and by the way, there's a very important point here, is the fact that during this process, we've realized that we're actually going to create growth. If we'll be able to achieve the goals we are talking about, we will add about 1 percentage point to the Israeli GDP every year. And when you talk about green growth, I mean, this is one of the key factors why the finance ministers are willing to help us, because we basically show him how we can pay it back. The second point, we try to leverage Israel entrepreneurship and knowledge in order to build a strong knowledge base around these fields. And I'll talk about it a little bit later. And the third part is the international part. We believe this is a global problem. We are only a small part of the problem. We might want to be a larger part of the solution, but still, the world has lots to offer, and we are a small country, and we need global cooperation in order to solve these problems. So this is what we plan for the local market. As we see, natural gas-based technologies are probably the quickest one to adopt. They're also cheaper than the ones we use right now. And hopefully we'll be able to start using them within a year and a half. And that's obviously we need the help of many different ministries in the government, and we use the support of the Ministry of Energy and Transportation and Environmental, etc. And hopefully together with them, we'll be able to come up with the right regulation and environment support and infrastructure in order to be able to start using that. And again, the idea is not mandatory, but rather to enable the market to use it. And if the solution will be good enough and cheap enough, the market will adopt it quickly. As you can see, our belief, and that's like maybe 10, 15 years down the road, is that in the future we will see other technologies emerging, probably cleaner technology around either electricity or biofuel, etc. So each one of these sectors we have a program, and we are hopefully be able to implement it over the years. Going to our next goal, along with other ministries, we are supporting many aspects of the Research and Development Center in Israel. We do it by supporting academic centers, by supporting startups across the board, by supporting all sorts of innovation events. And we try to build the knowledge around these areas by all sorts of events that we are orchestrating. There's a list of what we already managed to do. One important part is the fact that we are financially supports companies in the field, and hopefully within the next few weeks we will launch a $100 million co-invest fund that also will be able to support large scale-ups for companies that needs the money. The last part of our strategy is, again, is the international part. And what we try to do here is to find partners around the world who are willing to share information and use our knowledge and their knowledge, basically build together a program that will be able to, again, in each part of, it's like we have many technologies here, so it's obviously difficult, but we need to find the partners in whether it's in research level, company levels, governments, whatever, talking about policy, talking about implementation. There are many different questions that we have to address here. And again, as we said earlier, we believe this is it's a global issue. It's not only us who are suffering from the oil. There are a couple of areas which we feel Israel is strong, and we are pushing it forward. Again, we won't be able to cover all of them. One of them is the energy storage, and I'm sure many of you heard about the INRAP center in Bar Ilan. We also have quite a few interesting startups in the field, and which, again, we're trying to support. The other part is energy agriculture, and that's also includes all sorts of technology, some of it around the volcanic center, and some others in Beersheba University and other places. And again, here there's a major support needed, and hopefully we'll be able to help those guys push their technology forward. And again, natural gas is a major revelation in Israel, and we will use it for transportation as soon as we can. And for that, again, we're using the Energy Ministry and others. This is the landscape of the companies that we are supporting at the moment, and some of them obviously not supported by us, but some of them are just active in the field. There's about 100 companies. One of our success will be if in 5 years' time we will see this number doubled. And again, this is not an easy task, but that's why we're here. We are conducting all sorts of conferences and events, and you will hear more and more about us. The but in the end of the day, we need the private sector. We won't be able to make any progress without the private sector. We know that, and we try to help those guys and you guys, and hopefully together we'll be able to make it. So that's it. Global challenge, local innovation, and international cooperation. Thank you very much. I'm not sure we have time for questions, but this is up to Avi. Go ahead. What do you think? Well, maybe. Well, Better Places is an important player, but there are 99 others. Of course, we are trying to learn everything. Every day we learn more, and we still know nothing. Yeah, I do.
Next speaker is Professor Moti Hershkovitz, Vice President and Dean for R&D at the Ben-Gurion University of the Negev. He will talk about translating basic research into commercial applications.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. This is my fifth appearance. This is the fifth conference, and this is my fifth appearance here, and I'm very delighted to be here. And actually, I kind of represent the academic institutions here in Israel, and there are 7 research universities in Israel. They're all focused, and their mission is to generate new knowledge. But they're very well known, actually all of them, for being involved, deeply involved in applied research. And there are many inventions and startups coming out of the universities, and all of them have technology transfer companies, and actually many universities around the world are coming to Israel to learn technology transfer and translation of basic research into innovations, into applications, and to commercial applications. Now, in terms of the energy research, there are 6 research universities deeply involved in energy research. They all have vast programs in energy that are supported by the government through the Ministry of Science, through the Ministry of Energy, and through the Ministry of Trade and Commerce. And the support also comes through the various initiatives. The one initiative that just Eyal Rosner pointed out, which is a huge initiative these days, that supports a lot of research directly at the universities, mainly through the 2 centers that are established. One is the ICOR, which is the Center of Excellence, which is Ben-Gurion University, the Technion, and the Weizmann Institute, and the other one through the Israeli Science Foundation. The first one deals with what we call solar liquids. The ICOR deals with solar liquids, which is mainly renewable liquids through various steps, starting from biomass, through microbial decomposition of biomass, photocatalysis for splitting water, splitting CO2, and so forth, and then ultimately to renewable fuels. And then the other center of the Israeli Science Foundation deals with batteries and storage. And then there is the support of the philanthropic support that actually these days there is quite a bit of support for various philanthropies through the universities, and the university as such do invest a lot of money from their own resources, because now the name of the game is matching, so we got to match everything, and all the programs require matching, so we do that, and we're very proud to do that, although we don't think we have the resources to do it, but we'll do it. And ultimately, which is very important, is partnerships with industry. So we do have partnerships with industry, and we do conduct through various channels partnerships with industry, and we already see results. So now, what I would like to do is to focus a bit more on what's going on at the Ben-Gurion University, which is natural that I would give you one example, and it's naturally that I would give you the example of the Ben-Gurion University. And as a matter of fact, Ben-Gurion University was involved in energy research, just for you to know, for many years. and I don't want to forget that one because I see Udi got here in front of me. And Capital Nature was really an initiative of Eilat-Eilot, of Udi got specifically, was very much involved. He got me also involved into this, and I think the two of us with some other people together, then we set up this center, what's called Capital Nature, and we're very much involved in that as well. So now, Ben-Gurion University has a track record of more than three decades in energy research. This is Feldman, who got the award yesterday night. I hope you were all present there. On solar energy, started it in the late 70s. Then the group on algae research, way before it became so fashionable. In the early 80s, they were involved with the Department of Energy in the US with what's called NREL, the National Laboratory for Renewable Fuels or for renewable energy. Right there, they were very much involved in that, and then in liquid fuels and so forth. So there are lots of activities that were part of this. We have three campuses. The main campus is in Be'er Sheva. So we're called the Ben-Gurion University, which the main campus is located in Be'er Sheva, but we have two other campuses. One is in Sde Boker, where we have the institutes, the research institutes for desert research, and two institutes out of the three are deeply involved in energy research. One is on energy, where they host the National Center for Solar Energy, and the other one is on agriculture, and I'm going to say a few words about this as well. And the last one is, and the third one is right here in Eilat. And just I think I forgot one source of funding, which is actually one of the main sources of funding of energy research at the university, and this is the Nanotechnology Initiative of what's called in Israel Telem, which has been investing, is still investing around $250 million in nanotechnology research for building infrastructure and for supporting projects, and there are projects that are supported specifically on energy research. So this also is another major support for energy research. So that's how we see our mission, which is, for us, it's quite natural in order to be able to generate knowledge which ultimately will be moved into applications, and we think this role is very important that we can play here. In terms of, as I pointed out, in terms of our activities, one of them is certainly, and this is a unique place, a unique site that was set up, and we at Sde Boker, where we do all this research, or the solar research, specifically in CPV, and I think we have very harmonic relationship with Eilot, where they do the very large pilot plants, and they do this, we have the smaller pilot plants there, and the other activities that are focused there more into academic/applied research. So as you see here on the slide, we try to cover most aspects of solar energy research there. Then, as I said, we are involved, and this is one startup which was very successful, and I hope will continue to be successful in terms of applications of CPV, and Professor Feldman specifically was involved in that, but our researchers are involved with other companies that are dealing with CPV in the world. Then, as I pointed out about biomass, so biomass, as I said, historically was generated there, but now these days, I mean for the past, I would say 3-4 years, and it's continuing, 4 different projects of the European community, what they call FP7, the framework programs of the seventh framework program are carried out at Ben-Gurion, at Sde Boker by Professor Sami Busiba, and one of them is a demonstration project. It's a very large project. It's the first and the only very large project supported by European community, but doing this kind of a desert research on biomass, it's quite natural that we're dealing with biomass for energy applications. And so we also see the commercial applications of that. Then moving from biomass to the liquid fuels, we have vast activities there, both in combustion, and we have a center there supported by the Department of Energy on combustion of coal, which now is converted to combustion of natural gas and to combustion of biomass, which will be directed toward liquid fuels. So we have the infrastructure there, and we can use that for those kind of activities. And then you can do the carbon dioxide hydrogenation. And if you heard the first lecture by Isaacs, this is one of the challenges, and I'm going to say a few words about this as well. And the other activities, including conversion of oils, various oils, into what we call green jet fuel and diesel. And here we can report to you, although we cannot give you the details, that we are now conducting very intensive discussions, and actually we finalized those discussions for applications of our technology there, where our intellectual property that was generated at Ben-Gurion University by the Bleshner Center will be moved for commercial applications. And ExxonMobil was involved also in those activities in fuel cells, in the fuel cells technology there. I won't go into the details of that. Then, and this is the challenge, you know, if we look down the road, the artificial photosynthesis. So the US invests $120 million in a center in California that is doing those kind of activities. Here in Israel, and specifically at Ben-Gurion University, we are spending much less money than that, but I think we have just extraordinary developments there. Some of them may go into applications in the next 5 years, and the idea here is to take carbon dioxide, do water splitting, get the hydrogen from water splitting, and generate liquid fuels without having to go through biomass. This is viable, this is real, you can generate liquid fuels. This has been done for around 100 years, close to 100 years, from natural gas to what we call Fischer-Tropsch technology, but this requires natural gas. We want to go to the real raw materials, carbon dioxide, water, and get to the liquid fuels. And you can see here in this bottle here, in this Erlenmeyer, you can see a fuel, and this is real fuel that meets the standards. It's still not economical, there is still development to be done, but it can be done through catalytic processes. Then we are involved in natural gas activities. Obviously we should be, and I guess other universities are involved as well, and we're trying to expand those activities because now it's a kind of a national priority here in Israel, so we want to move forward on that as well. And the others, and I'll be very brief here because I know the time is short. Fuel cells, the nuclear reactors, only in the modeling part of it, we used to have the only department on nuclear energy for undergraduates. Now we're going to maintain those activities to some extent, and we're going to promote the graduate programs through that. Thermoelectricity. Thermoelectricity is a major research topic at Ben-Gurion, and we have an excellent group that's doing thermoelectricity there, very advanced research there. But also we have to look at energy efficiency, and we have this group that's looking at efficient VLSI circuits, because as you heard, computers are using a lot of energy, and if we can find out a way to do it more efficiently, we certainly should be working on that. And then we have again, at Sde Boker, the group that's doing regional and urban sustainable development. And the last topic here that I want to mention is energy accounting and its interaction with society, which I think it's an important role of the academic institutions to study that, and we do study that. We have several researchers involved in that. So all in all, we have about 50 researchers doing this type of activities, those type of activities, and indeed we plan to spend at least $20 million over the past 5 years, over the next 5 years, I should say, over the next 5 years. And by doing our own work, but also working through partnerships. 2 universities, 3 universities, doing consortia with other universities, doing international collaborations, and we do have international collaborations, working together with industry in various ways. And we believe that indeed Ben-Gurion universities, as well as the other universities, will have a major impact on the development of renewable energy in the future. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Dr. Shlomo Wald, Chief Scientist, Ministry of Energy and Water Resources. He will talk about constructing the future of energy mix.
Good morning, everyone. And I would like to start with a brief introduction of the Chief Scientist Office at the Ministry of the Ministry of Energy and Water Resources. The mission of our department is to assist the ministry in defining long-term policy based on technology. And while defining this policy, we always find some gaps, technological gaps that should be filled, and we do that by supporting R&D in about 50 million shekels a year in new projects, and we invest our money in three specific dead valley that we recognize in the R&D process. One of them is academic research. The second one is in a startup company, pre-seed, early stage startup companies. And the third valley is the pilot and demonstration plan. I think that our program are extremely attractive, and all of them will be described later today in a panel on innovation led by Dr. Igor Darji from our department. We support technologies, but also we arrange our R&D in about 5 system-oriented projects. One of them is a smart grid led by Dr. Yoel Cohen, and if you saw the presentation of Eric Isaacs from Argonne National Lab, he says that they are focused on internet-like power grid, which is a novel idea, not supported usually by the roadmap of United States and Europe. And we are following this idea of internet-like power grid. The second system-oriented project is Smart Cities, led by Edi Betazavdi, that all of you know. The third project is the Oil Initiative, Oil Replacement Initiative, led by Dr. Bracha Khalaf, that all of you know, I think. And the fourth program is future nuclear power, maybe small modular reactor and 4th-generation nuclear power. And the last but not least is the National Energy Master Plan that we are conducting. And based on this, I shall this is the basis for me, this talk that shows you some very coarse model that we made in order to investigate the future energy mix in Israel and the role of renewable energy. The target was to identify very coarsely if there are any gaps in the energy resources forecasted for the year 2060. I shall give just a brief presentation and brief description of this model, but I know that any of you, it may be boring, so any of you that didn't sleep well tonight can relax and get a complete nap during my talk. But those who will stay awake, I'm sure that they'll find it quite controversial, and I ask for comments and ideas, and I shall welcome everything what you will say, and we shall discuss it maybe later, either in the question and answers and, or in the intermission. The method was to analyze the electricity market on energy basis, under energy constraint, not on power constraints. And we look on the demand side, and we estimate the minimal amount required of electricity during the years. And the minimal requirement, it's by making very strong assumption required to energy efficiency and other things. And the idea is to, I may say that if you take probabilities, that we are, the minimum amount was set about one standard deviation way down from the business as usual assumption. Then we looked on the supply side. Each known supply resource of energy was investigated, and we look for the maximum amount that can be produced using this means of supply. And then we look if there is a gap between the minimum demand and the maximum supply, and if a gap exists, then what are the possible solutions? This is a very coarse model, and it should be a benchmark for sanity tests of the more developed models that are now ongoing through our master plan project that we conduct in our ministry. So let us start from the demand estimation for the year 2000 till the year 2060. The present consumption of electricity is about 59 terawatt hours per year. And we estimated an increase rate of 2.5% a year. This is average. The model is very simple. We didn't make, this is the same percentage taken for all the period of our study. But this, I may give you some indication why we set this 2.5% increase. The annual increase rate till the year 2010 was 3.25%. Okay, then we assume that there will be a major energy saving. During the year 2010, we established a national energy efficiency program. I think it's a very unique program that was set in our ministry, unique worldwide. It was bottom-up study that every aspect was studied carefully, and we find limits and the understanding where efficiency can be gained and how fast it can be gained. And this program is now under implementation. We set a limit of 20% reduction of energy consumption compared to the business as usual scenario by the year 2020. I think that this target can be met, but there is increased demand that that can't be avoided. First of all, the major drive for demand is the increase in standards of life. The demand is extremely proportional to the rate of increase in the GDP adjusted to the purchasing power. So since this is increased a lot, this is the major drive of increase. Another thing, we might find in coming year many new customers for electricity, electrifying the railways, electric cars, etc. This will increase consumption. And if there will be climate change, the main outcome of climate change will be a major increase in the electricity demand for water desalination, for air conditioning, for cooling of a system in the industry. This is a huge demand. So the amount of 2.5% increase is represent estimate of about 25% efficiency reduction to all the year. This is a major assumption, but this defines the future demand, and we believe this is a realistic assumption. The second point was the supply. We treat the various sources of energy supply, non-energy supply, starting with renewable energy, solar, wind, biogas, and biomass, geothermal energy and hydro, and the fossil fuel like natural gas, coal, and oil shales. Now we made a careful investigation of each of those sources. I shall not go through every point of it, but you have some information here. And first of all, we defined the upper limit for energy supply that can be provided by solar energy. We calculate estimate the available area for solar energy production, and the maximum energy that can be produced per unit area. The current estimation that we made, nothing was approved by any authority, was about 350 kilometers square available for solar energy. This we made by looking on the map carefully, find places that are adequate for solar facilities, estimate that deduct from the area demanded by the army, natural reservation, agriculture, whatsoever, and then this is the estimate that we have right now. We believe that in the future, when energy will be more and more scarce, maybe we shall be able to allocate more area, and then we get a limit of 500 to 525 kilometer square, and this is the estimate that we use for this study for the maximum power. Then nowadays, for each square kilometer, usually people can install the best available technology, about 40 megawatts per square kilometer. We assume that in the future, increase of efficiency, triple junctions or whatever, and many other new technologies may increase the production up to 70 megawatt per kilometer square, which is really exaggeration. Everyone in this field may say that it is too high. Then we have to say how much energy can be extracted from those fields. We assume what is called capacity factor of 20% and capacity credit of 78%. Capacity factor measures how many hours a year the installation is available to provide energy. And then the capacity credit reflects how reliable is energy supply, how the system can absorb the renewable energy into the grid safely. And if you multiply both factors, you get about 15.5%. This reflects about 1,360 hours a year that this huge fields that we shall construct will be able to provide energy to the system. This is on the average. We estimate that increased efficiency, what we do, will increase this factor by 50%. That means that we shall reach about more than 2,000 hours per year available energy from solar energy to the grid. This brings us to the maximum capacity from solar energy of 75 terawatt hours per year. If you remember the 60 terawatt hours that we are consumed today, it seems extremely promising. It is more than what is the demand of the current demand, but we shall see that this is the maximum that you get through all the year. After we install this capacity, no more solar energy is forecasted to be in Israel. Looking for the wind energy, the current estimate is about 800 megawatt a total capacity that can be able to be installed. We assume increased because of maybe improved of efficiency of turbines, lower speed turbines, and better performance, that maybe 1,600 megawatt or maybe 2 gigawatt can be installed of wind energy. Using again the capacity factor and estimating the capacity factor and the credit factor, we got that the hours available from wind, and it's the old potential of wind is very limited, about 3 terawatt hours per year, no more. This is very sad. Now the biogas and biomass. In biogas and biomass, we have a conflict with the Ministry of Environmental Protection. The Ministry of Environment demand that first of all the waste will first of all be used for will be recycled. The leftover we shall extract by anaerobic process, extract the methane, and the rest is under discussed whatsoever. But this brings us to a very limited amount of energy produced from the biomass. It may be 3 to 4 terawatt hours per year in the future. But what we estimated, just for a maximum estimate, we assume that all the biomass, the organic waste, will be used for energy production. And we make the estimate, and we got a prospect of in the year 2060 of 16 terawatt hours per year. So biomass, if will be reduced, if will be used for energy, it is a major contribution to the grid. And it is more reliable, it is 24/7. So I think that we might consider waste as a raw material for energy, and it is a way of recycling and not something that should be dismissed from the beginning. The geothermal energy and the hydroelectric power are negligible, and we estimated some rate of installation of renewable energy through the years in order to have some estimate of the demand and supply, the maximum demand and supply. And we have 2 limits of the solar implementation. One of them is reasonable, about 375 or 400 megawatt per year, and the maximum we say is 750 megawatt per year. This will bring us that in the year 2060, all the solar energy will be exhausted. So we get a very important figure. The blue line at the top is the demand in terawatt hours per year. The bottom line, the green, is the installed all renewable resources in the reasonable limit. And what you see, if you just compare the slope of the blue and the green line, you see that the distance, the gap between these 2 curves increases all the time. That means that although we may install renewable energy in very aggressive way, still fossil or other resource must be increased as well. That means more, several hundred megawatts a year should be installed for gas-fired power plant or coal or something like that. This is a major understanding. You have to understand that we have to build every year about 300 megawatts of fossil fuel installation. So, just a minute, I want to say a few words about natural gas. The natural gas we have nowadays, the supply side, we have known 250 BCM found in the Marfield. Then there is a finding, not yet a discovery, of 450 BCM per year. And there are lots of wishful thinking of about additional 500 BCM based on the USGS survey that give us about 1,200 BCM estimate. And there are several estimations of the Tzemach committee that assume that the accumulated amount demand is 500 BCM till 2040. And I shall get just to the last two bullets, which are the most important thing. The second bullet, that if no natural gas will be exported, and if we shall consume the natural gas locally, and I take into account some natural gas usage from transportation too, in the year 2050 to the year 2060, all the natural gas, the Israeli resources, will be exhausted. This is a fact. That means that all the natural gas plants that we build now, starting from this year, will have to import natural gas like LNG, in the LNG form or something like that, in order to operate. This is not so promising prospect. But till 2060, it's a very important region where we can make the best of our natural gas, and because of that, the mission of using natural gas for transportation is extremely important. One thing about natural gas system is a single fault system. A single problem in the natural gas can make us black out or brown out. A country like Singapore that uses most of its energy from natural gas suffers for blackouts in a rate which is higher than any other country in the Western world. That means that two more slides. That means that they can build every year a new coal-fired power plant, just wrap it in nylon in order to be able to recover from blackout. So this is a limit that we prefer that no more than 30% of the installed capacity will be on gas. And the government decided about it 50%. I shall skip the coal. Everyone knows about coal and the oil shales, which is a great thing, and I shall just go to the conclusion. The security and reliability demand requires that we shall not have installed capacity of more than 30 to 50% of the electricity coming on natural gas. And if no changes of the public attitude toward coal, the share of the coal will be no more than 5–10% in the year 2050. Renewable energy probably will not be more than 30% of the energy mix in the future. In about 15 years, we must introduce new facilities like modern coal facilities in order to avoid total dependence on natural gas. Starting from 2050, this will not be enough, and we must implement new technologies for energy production for electricity and maybe nuclear or other facilities. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Dr. Avraham Gross, Deputy Chief Scientist for Technology, the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Labor. And I want to use the opportunity to congratulate you for your new and demanding role. So please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. This is really the light that gets into our eyes. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to give you a brief description of the Office of the Chief Scientist of the Ministry of Industry and Trade and Labor activity in general and specifically in the field of renewable energy. This talk, I'll try to make it short, will be divided into three parts. First part will be a general presentation of the OCS activity. Then I'll describe a little bit more in details what we are doing in the renewable energy field. And third, I'll give you some of my insight into the future. It will be much less comprehensive from what Shlomo Waldever presented, but it will show some aspect that relate to the environment of the Israeli innovation. You may have seen this graph that was made by the World Economic Forum in Davos and shows how much each country is rated in the field of innovation and quality of scientific research. You can see that Israel is ranked 6th in the world in the level of innovation, and first in the quality of scientific research. Now, what is the level of innovation? How do the Davos or the World Economic Forum define or evaluate level of innovation? Well, the first thing that they look is a company R&D spending. How much companies in the country are spending on R&D? And of course here, the Office of the Chief Scientist has a major contribution. The second pillar that they look at is what are the relations between the university and industry. We have heard a talk from Ben-Gurion University, and he mentioned a few times the importance of this relation. And again, here, Israel is ranked very high, and the Office of the Chief Scientist is contributing to this relationship. The third pillar and level of innovation is availability of scientists and engineers. Here, it's more the work of the Ministry of Education, of course, and other parameters like patents granted per capita is an important factor. And I would say that in some programs that the Office of the Chief Scientist is supporting, patents and patent application is a very important part of the support. How did it all started? You know, there is a question, sometimes people ask, why should government get involved at all in industry? Let the industry do what they have to do. Let they choose the programs and the products that will bring the maximum of revenue. Why should government intervene? And we know that there are a lot of economical and market failures, and that's where the government gets in. And the law for the OCS office was enacted in 1984. And the reason for that was to enhance, strengthen, and improve the development of local science-based industry, the Israel balance of trade, more export and less import, not just by less consuming, but by producing more in-house, and also to give a better and higher quality employment for people in Israel so that scientists and others would prefer to stay here and not migrate to other countries which give them opportunities, and so on and so forth, as it says here. We've seen here university, we've seen here the requirement from the energy. Everything starts with a basic research, and here the OCS is not involved very much, but then when you start to take a technology that have a potential to become a product, that's where sometimes support from government is needed to overcome some gaps, Death Valley as it's called, and other market failures. And that's where we are involved in pre-competitive research, and then of course in the competitive environment. These are the myriads of programs, many programs that the chief scientist is supporting. They're matched and tailored for different industry segments, for different technologies, for different cycles in the life cycle of a product, and so on and so on and so forth. They reflect, of course, government wishes and general market ideas. I will now say a few words about the major programs. Of course, the major program, which takes about 50% of the money that the chief scientists allocate, is the R&D fund, and this is free for all. Any Israeli company that wants to develop a product that is innovative, that has risk involved in it, can apply to get funds and support from the chief scientist. This is non-directive. It gives the industry the initiative and where to go. And what we check is just it's innovative enough, it's brave enough, it's risky enough that granted government support. Then there are the technological incubators. The technological incubators are there to let the entrepreneurs start to fulfill their dreams. And it's not just giving them money, it's also giving them the infrastructure, giving them the tutoring and other support that are needed at this early stages for entrepreneurs. Then there is magnet consortia. This is where you have a technology, but it's too early in its stage to become a product. And here we encourage different companies, and we want competing companies to go together with the academy and develop the basic technology, and then each of them can take it by its own to make it a product. And finally, but not least, is of course the international cooperation, where the Office of the Teach Scientists, with the assistance of Matimop, are doing the facilitating relationship between Israeli companies and foreign companies, foreign governments, and so on. If we look at OCS activities, especially in clean tech, I would like to mention the 3 magnets consortia that working in this area. One of them, the SES, is going to present here, and the other one is Smart Grid, and the third one is more in the water treatment. The 3 special programs that have been targeted at renewable energy are the Technological Center that has been, the capital nature have been presented here. They have been allocated, no one said that, but 57 million shekels for 5 years. And it's not just an incubator. It's much more than that. It's an incubator. It's a test facility for new technology. It's some gap, connecting the gap between the research in the academy and the industry. Then there is investment in the field of alternative fuels, have been discussed before. Here, 400 million shekels have been allocated for 8 years. And finally, there is also a small program for greenhouse gas emission reduction. And it says that whenever a big commercial facility is installed, a small part of it has to be allocated to Israeli companies so that they can test their ideas in this field. Some statistics. Clean tech, supported by the OCS. If we look at 2011, the total clean tech, which includes energy and water and waste control and stuff like this, is about 135 million shekels for about 100 projects. If we look now at energy only, so we take of this segment, look at energy only from 2008 and on, and the reason we started 2008, and that's where really the energy sector in Israel started to pick up. There were companies that were doing renewable energy before, but really at 2007, 2008, more and more companies joined the fashion of green energy. The total budget for the project was 476 million shekel. Out of that, the OCS supported 35%. Most of the support, by the way, is royalty-based. So companies, if they succeed, have to repay the amount of money they received and nothing more than that. So a little bit, some interest, but not significant. The total number of projects was 120, which means about 80 different companies. Then, if you can see here on the pictures, you can see some of the companies that presented here, biodiesel and Celera and Solar Oil. All of them have been supported and they're doing very well. If I look at the categories of green tech, of Israel clean energy that the OCS supports, then we have the category of solar, and here we find companies that deal with printing, direct printing of metals for solar cells, integrated building, photovoltaic, water heating, even water heating, this traditional technology that have been for us for tens of years. There are some companies in the traditional segment that wants to improve and innovate in this area. If we look at smart grid, of course, and efficient use, there's a lot of contribution here. LED drivers, remote meters, and stuff like this. Battery and fuel cells have been, some of the companies presented here. Biofuel have been discussed. Wind, turbines, and of course, in oil and gas, there are very few, and just one of them is deal with DME. If we look at the pie chart, how is the money divided between these categories, then we see that most of it goes to solar, 51%. Remember that the total amount was about 160 million shekels. And then smart grid, battery and fuel cells, and improving efficiency, about the same, between 15 and 8% each. Now I want to say a few words about the future, and I know my time is out, so it will be quick. There have been a lot of words have been said about it, and I'll do it quick. So there is one constant factor, and it has been talked about a lot, and Shlomo Wald have discussed it very nicely. This is a map that shows how much radiation Israel gets during the year, and we see that the major part of the country, in the south, are getting about 2,200 hours of sun each year. This is the 25% that Shlomo mentioned. This is a constant factor. But what are the changing factors? The fast changing factors, I think one of the major one is the enormous reduction, unpredicted because no one thought it will happen so fast, of the cost of solar panels. I have here two graphs that shows that within 1 year, the big graph, within 1 year, the solar the cost of a watt for a solar panel dropped from $1.60 to less than 70 cents. And this is just for 2011 until now. This is a major change. And the question is, how does the Israeli industry adapt to it? And I was thinking, in the line that again, Shlomo said before, we are burning fossil fuel, and fossil fuels actually have been accumulation of the sun power and sun photons over many years, of zillions of years, and converting it into combustible or heat. So now we can take the coal or gas or whatever it will be and convert it into heat. So when I'm asking myself, is 70 cents per watt, is it cheap enough? Does it make any difference? Is it a tipping point? What should I compare it to? So I said, okay, let's compare it to the price of coal, because price of fossil fuel? Because what did fossil fuel do? Takes the sun and convert it into heat. What does a panel do? Takes the sun and convert it to electricity. So if we want to get some notion whether 70 cents is cheap enough or not, let's compare it to the cost of fossil fuel. And I took the same numbers, very similar numbers to what was presented before. And if we install, just to make it vivid, if we install 1 gigawatt, which is about 3 to 4% of the Israel total consumption of electricity per year, the above 50 trillion watt hours. If we take 1 gigawatt, which is only 4% or 3% of the Israel, that the area of the panels is about 7 kilometers square. That is 2.6 kilometer by 2.6 kilometer, very small area. Of course, the land will be much bigger because the usage cannot be 100%. That will cost about $800 million in panels only. I'm not talking about installation and regulation of the stuff. This is something very vague. It's too complicated. I'm a physicist. It's too complicated for physicists to take into account because it entails a lot of complexity. I'm talking about just the simple panels, and so if we look at the numbers, and I'll be quick, it will take, to return this $800 million, it will take about 8 years in the cost of the gas that we buy from the Tamar, that we will buy in the future from the Tamar. It will take only 2.6 years to return this if we buy liquefied LNG. And so you see that this gives you some idea whether 70 cents is cheap enough or not. So you build a plant that will last 25 years, and it takes 2.6 years to return the initial investment, and then you have almost 22 years of free energy. if you compare it to LNG, for example. The question is, again, that a lot of people ask, okay, what does it do for, except for giving us cheap energy, what does it do to the Israeli industry? How can it improve the localized production? How can it improve innovation, export, quality job creation? And of course, I think that the answer is in the known saying that we have also a lot of resources of scientific and technological proficiency, and if we look at it, then there is, in the environment, there are a lot of things that can be done. For example, improving the module efficiency so that less land should be used, improving the balance of system conversion efficiencies, energy storage. We have heard before that there is a major problem with the sun power of diminishing capacity. After 5%, the fact that sun gives you a peak during noontime is a major drawback, and so on and so forth, and this is the last. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And last but not least speaker is Mr. Oded Distel, Director of New Tech and the Investment Promotion Center in the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Labor. Please.
Good morning. Thank you, Avi. I'll start with the two good news. One, no presentation. And the second one is, I'll try to be brief, and the one who's going to survive, we have a nice film at the end of my talk that I'm sure is going to wake everybody who is still dozing. What I would like to do in the next few minutes is share with you some thoughts, some ideas, and basically a little bit raise the point of view specifically from subsectors or analyzing the energy market to what I think directs everything, and this is a few global changes or trends. And we see those trends and changes basically in every aspect of our life, from politics and economics and education and infrastructure. And the major elements of those trends, one is that everything is much, much quicker now. Everything means everything, and just a week ago, we had a very interesting meeting with the head of Italian telecom company, major one, and interestingly enough, he said that his philosophy to his people is to fail quickly. Which means that from his point of view, at the beginning it sounds weird, but when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. He wants them to reach the point where they decide whether a project, an R&D project or a business project, whatever, is feasible, is economical, quickly. It's okay to dare, it's okay to be bold, to imagine, to think, but reach quickly the point where you take a decision, yes, no. And this is the gap that we all try to make sooner the better. Because if you reach, after 10 years, you lost so much time, so much money on the way. Rather, if you got to this point after a few months, makes a lot of sense. So, quick is one thing. Another very important is efficiency. If you take somebody out there on the beach in Eilat and you tell them that we build our entire power system according to one day over the year, which has the peak demand, it sounds crazy. So we try to shave the peak, etc., but basically we program everything according to this peak demand system. Another element, if you take light bulb, until recently we used to use for light bulbs that about 80% of the energy was wasted to heat. Same goes with the regular car that before we move to electrical vehicles, etc., we still drive the regular car. This is a tremendously wasteful engine. Most of it goes to heat. So there are a lot of points where we can identify potential development technologies that we can explore and create a very viable and profitable business out of it. So it is accuracy, speed, efficiency, cost-effective. Those are the elements that are going to lead us. Now, another very interesting trend that we see a lot is the approach of large multinationals towards innovation that comes out of their system. And again, multinationals for many years had a very conservative approach towards innovation, and this was based on the fact that we know best, we do everything the way we like, and whoever is out there, fine, but we based on our business on what we do in-house. This is changing dramatically, and I hear it often from heads of large multinationals. They understand that if they don't manage to open up their system and be able to cooperate with players out of those organizations, they cannot survive. So they try to find ways to cooperate with universities, with small companies, with entrepreneurs, with medium-sized companies, in order to minimize time for them to reach the innovation, to be open for new ideas. And just the other day, we had the investment event, and we had there representatives of GE, ABB, and Bosch, and all said the same thing. We are looking for innovation. We are open for innovation. Where does it put Israel? I think in a very interesting position. And we heard both Shlomo and Avram that described the system in Israel and the fact that the Israeli economy is based on innovation and creativity. And there is a very interesting platform in Israel that supports this innovation, and the number of companies that are engaged in this in research and development. And Avi mentioned the figure from Israel, from the Cleantech Group, the fact that 8 Israeli companies were recognized as potential leaders for the cleantech industry for the future, which puts Israel second place globally, right after USA. So this is very encouraging. And the fact that the trends that I've just described, I think, gives additional option for the Israeli companies. When the world is connected, when global players are looking for innovation, when the ability for a small company from whatever that is in the portfolio of Capital Nature to be connected to Suntech in China, to ABB in Europe, to GE in the US, and for them to interact on an equal base is very encouraging, very interesting. What characterized the Israeli, I would say, ecosystem, flexibility, multidisciplinary, flat society, those are all great advantages for the world as it's going to be. Well, already is, but definitely going to this direction. One word about, a few words about Israel New Tech and the Investment Promotion Center. We are in charge of promoting the Israeli clean tech sector forward and connecting it to what is happening globally. And we are doing it by attracting investments to Israel and by opening doors for the Israeli clean tech industry abroad, being investors, partners, potential customers, suppliers, the entire spectrum. We do it here in Israel through a very deep cooperation with all the players in Israel, inside our ministry, and with other ministries. Ministry of Energy and Water, Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, etc., etc. Of course, the electrical company, and we do it also in the water arena, so it is the Water Authority, etc., etc. And with our people abroad, which is the chain of commercial attachés spread all over the world, and they are basically the business developers of this industry. And they work on the level of the sector and on the level of specific companies that have specific requests. And I would add also the entire embassies in the world, people of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that are also engaged in this process. And everybody likes very much to work on the clean tech arena. Israel has a very good reputation in this sector. It's a growing one, interesting one, and it's definitely one of the most powerful sectors that are going to dominate the agenda for the worlds to come. So with this, I conclude, and if possible, I would like to present the short film that I have promised.
You find seeds that can be programmed to become whatever you wish. You engineer them to have limitless creativity. You plant them in soil designed to nourish them. They yield fruits of endless new inventions.
Thank you very much, and we conclude here.
Thank you. Good morning. We are now going to divide into two semi-plenaries. One is staying here is about Sagi Dagan is going to chair the session about our choice to choose the fuel we are using in our vehicles. So this is alternative transportation and alternative fuels. On the first floor at the Tarshish, we have a semi-plenary chaired by Eitan Yudulevich, the CEO of the Bird Foundation, about smart grid cybersecurity. So please, if you're interested in smart grid cybersecurity, step out and go to the first floor to the Tarshish Hall. If you're interested in fuel choice and alternative transportation, we're going to start here in just about 2 minutes. Thank you very much.